Those who have a why to live can deal with almost any how. Welcome to 3 Things You Can Use, where Maddie and I decode self-improvement and entrepreneurship through books, 3 things at a time. This week's book is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl. A prominent Viennese psychiatrist before the war, Viktor Frankl was uniquely able to observe the way that both he and others in Auschwitz coped, or didn't, with the experience. He noticed that it was the men who comforted others and who gave away their last piece of bread who survived the longest, and who offered proof that everything can be taken away from us except the ability to choose our attitude in any given set of circumstances. The sort of person the concentration camp prisoner became was the result of an inner decision and not of the camp's influences alone. Frankl came to believe man's deepest desire is to search for meaning and purpose. This outstanding work offers us all a way to transcend suffering and find significance in the art of living. That's from Amazon. So, what are 3 things we can use from this book? The tension question. Viktor Frankl presents an interesting conception of tension that is a little counterintuitive to today's anti-stress culture. He says, I consider it a dangerous misconception of mental hygiene to assume that what man needs in the first place is equilibrium, that is, a tensionless state. What man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather a striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal, a freely chosen task. What he needs is not the discharge of tension at any cost, but the call of a potential meaning waiting to be fulfilled by him. He continues to explain, representing his view with 2 poles on opposite sides of a field of tension. One pole is the meaning to be fulfilled, and the other the person who must cross the field of tension to fulfill it. It's an interesting conception in today's terms because it's telling us to run right at the stress, and you don't really hear that from anybody else nowadays. But I think what the difference here is that stress in most cases is something to be avoided, but only because of where it comes from. It's the difference between getting stressed because you spilled your drink versus getting stressed because you are trying to take the next step in your life. It's the difference between unnecessary stress over unnecessary things versus stressing over the important things. Stressing over spilling your drink is counterproductive and harmful, whereas stressing over meaning has to happen in order to eventually fulfill that meaning. The 3 avenues of meaning. Viktor Frankl, through his psychology practice of logotherapy, has shown that we can discover meaning in 3 different ways. 1. Creating a work or doing a deed. 2. By experiencing something or encountering someone. And 3. By the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering. He states that the way of achievement, creating work or doing a deed, as a way to discover meaning, is obvious. When it comes to experiencing something or encountering someone, number 2, he is talking about experiencing things like goodness, truth, and beauty, finding meaning by experiencing nature and culture, and last but not least, by experiencing another human being in their very uniqueness by loving them. That's love. And finally, we can find meaning in our response to unavoidable suffering. Frankl says that the choice we make in our suffering to be decent or indecent, to choose dignity and humanity over the path of least resistance, gives us something to live for. And those who take the path of least resistance have already given up. But fundamentally, meaning goes deeper than achievement, experience, and/or dignity. The most bare-bones way of finding meaning, that underlies the earlier forms of finding meaning, comes from selflessness or self-transcendence. To transcend yourself, or to begin to focus more on others, is the only way to unlock the door to self-actualization and meaning. Viktor Frankl puts the principle this way. If you need to go to sleep, you've got your to-do list in your head for the next day, rushing around. It's late, and if you don't sleep soon, you'll have a bad day tomorrow, and you really need to get this stuff done. So you worry, and you tell yourself over and over that you need to go to sleep, you clearly won't be able to go to sleep, as long as sleep is what you're focusing on. He calls this hyperintention, the point where intention defeats itself. So everybody knows that the solution here is to try and stay awake instead. Focusing on staying awake, trying to keep your eyes open, repeating "stay awake" to yourself, puts you to sleep almost instantly. And this is where the principle applies to finding meaning itself, that the intention to self-actualize, that is to find meaning, by focusing on yourself and your own self-actualization, makes it much harder to accomplish, whereas having a focus on others, transcending oneself, is the opposite. It's the way to counter the hyperintention. Self-transcendence is the key to self-actualization. It is the way to fall asleep by telling yourself to stay awake. So, to recap, stress can be necessary and even good if it's coming from an important place of meaning. You can find meaning in 3 different fluid ways: through achievement, experience, or dignity in the face of suffering. The key to finding meaning is transcending oneself and focusing on other people. The fundamental key. It's too bad this show is called The 3 Things Show and not the 100 Things Show, because I had a lot of hard prioritizing to do to figure out which 3 things I wanted to use from this book, because it was full of lots of very interesting philosophical points regarding our existence, as well as tons of great stories full of perspective and useful teachings. This book is a 2-parter. The first part describes his experiences and musings of his time in the concentration camps, and the second part is a condensed look at logotherapy, the psychology of meaning and finding meaning. It's a really great book on the fundamentals of life that you don't really see much, typically, and I really enjoyed it and have a bit of a shifted perspective because of it. So I highly recommend it, and if you want to buy it, you can click on the links below, and they'll take you right to it. Not yet. And I want to say sorry that this video was late. I wanted to make sure I got it right, and I felt that yesterday I didn't have it where I wanted it to be yet, because this was a good one, and I didn't want to mess it up. This book was. Anyway, next week's video is still scheduled for Tuesday. If you liked our show, give it a like. Thank you for watching. If you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss next week's video, and we'll see you next week. Bye! Oh, now you're not going to do it?